Hi, this is our lesson revision reflection. I'm Hailey.
I'm Karli.
I'm Kaitlyn.
I'm Ava.
I'm Keeghan.
Okay, so our first question is, identify a revision that was especially meaningful to you. Why did it matter for student engagement, differentiation, or mathematical thinking? So, at least for me, I think the one that was most meaningful is just overall our connecting the students' prior knowledge. I think that had the biggest effect on students and how much they were able to take away from the lesson and their confidence in the lesson, especially with how complex the problems got towards the end of the lesson. So, for example, we connected it to their personal lives in the beginning by having them explain if they've cleaned a room with a friend before. And then during the lesson, we have them think back to prior lessons that might help them during this time when they're solving.
And that allowed with a lot more critical thinking.
Right. So why did it matter for student engagement? I just think that overall, just in general, connecting to their background knowledge made it more relevant to their personal lives. Again, cleaning their room with a friend, they were able to think back and connect to that. And then during the lesson, they're like, okay, I remember this specific time when we were doing fractions. This is going to help me solve this problem.
I think also hearing them have the differing opinions about our question also showed that like it ties to mathematical. Like everybody's going to think differently about something and have a different way of solving.
And with going off of what Hailey said, I also think student engagement is really meaningful to me because with the prior knowledge, it gets them more motivated in doing the work and more likely to participate.
And then that kind of ties in with differentiation because prior knowledge gives teachers insight on where students' learning is and where their gaps and strengths are.
And then we also think it's really important because it allows students with different backgrounds to contribute their own like unique perspectives, and it builds a better community through multiple ways to learn and helps the students feel confident in their learning, whether they're emergent or advanced. It helps.
And in terms of mathematical thinking, it really just builds a foundation for new concepts to be learned and sticks in their brain and enhances problem-solving skills, which is really what we're trying to get them to do and is very important for not only math but all subjects. It helps them recognize what kind of problem they're solving so that they can identify later in units. And it is connected by van der Waal as well, because learning is constructed, so this is just helping them build off of for future units and lessons.
Okay, so number 2 says, reflect on what you learned from the enactment. How did the revisions work in practice? And what would you adjust again if given another chance? So just from the overall enactment, I think that I think it was cool to see, like, visualize or have a visual representation of what everybody was changing about the lesson, because we talked about that lesson so heavily, so to see how different people made it and how creative their revisions were was very interesting. But I think about in practice, especially for our group, in theory, the revisions we made were like, oh, we nailed this. But then when it came to like putting them in practice, before we even enacted the lesson, when we were just trying to throw it together before the inaction,
we felt like it was missing something.
Yes, we were like, what can we add? Like we instantly felt like we needed to add something.
And for example, like when we were looking at it, we actually used sentence structures to help students stay on task and enact the critical thinking aspect. It just allowed their brains to kind of like grasp what we were trying to learn a little bit better. So we added that.
I think what I would adjust if given another chance as well is adding more manipulatives, because I felt like we just gave students the problem and told them to get a sheet of paper and a pencil and figure it out. So I feel like we could have provided some manipulatives just to make it a little bit more engaging and just even more understandable for the students. I think that would have helped.
And they were on the front table, but like I think that connecting to that, we could have passed out different manipulatives to different tables.
Or just said like, hey, these are up here if you guys would like to use them. I think that's kind of where we dropped the ball and something I would like to change in the future. So for number 3, it says, refer to look for notes. Identify one moment that you recorded that illustrates one of our look fors, and how does that connect to the van der Waal page numbers?
So one of the look fors that we did were the quality of questions, and it asked the students get the chance to share multiple strategies. And through our lesson, we gave the students a chance to think, pair, share with a partner. And then, for example, we also called up one of the students, Tessa, to share her thinking. That way she could share it with the whole group. And that is talked about in page 117 of Vanderwall.
Alright.
Okay, and then so for mine, the look for I noticed was number 4, student ownership and engagement. So it asked 2 questions. Who was doing most of the talking and thinking, and were students positioned as the sense makers? So I think throughout everybody's enactments, especially ours, it was very much teacher introduced, student led.
Yeah.
So like we introduced the question, we explained what students will be doing, and then outside of that, it was very much student forward. So we gave students the problem, we said solve it, like be unique about in your solving strategy. And then so that was students being positioned as the sense makers. Again, doing most of the talking and thinking, students solved on their own and then turned for think, pair, share with a partner. And that connects to Vanderwall because on page 109, there's a whole section about mathematical agency. And it kind of just talks about how students develop mathematical agency, and when they develop that, when they are solving a problem, they want to solve it on their own. They want to like be creative and come up with strategies and to solve it, and they don't want to just be given the answer. And I think we did a good job of like facilitating that in our instruction. So yeah.
Thank you.
Great. Yeah, thank you. That's all.